Today, Rinpoche concluded the section called Training the Mind in the Stage of the Past Shared in Common with Beings of Medium Capacity. That section has 4 categories: the mental training, the measure of the determination to be free, dispelling misconceptions, and ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. Today, Rinpoche completed his explanation of those 4 categories.
Sheba, Susu Sheba, Nyamu Pomba, Maduzu, Nyamu Pomba, Habas, Jewot and Melesamara. Ta what the Sheba de True Taji, Ta Susu Sheba del True, what the ring as to Kulman de Mara.
Once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. Specifically the section Training the Mind in the Stage of the Path Shared in Common with Beings of Medium Capacity. In that section, in Lama Tsongkhapa's own outline, we find that there are 4 major headings. First, the mental training. Second is the measure of the determination to be free. Third, dispelling misconceptions. And fourth, ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. So we've completed the first 3 categories, and we're currently dealing with the end of category number 4, ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation. So in category number 4, there are 8 different parts, and we've 8 different sections according to Jayan Sheba's outline from the 4 interwoven commentaries. And we're on the 8th of those parts, or 8th section currently. And in the 8th section, there are 4 categories. The first category, let me just back up a little bit. And ascertaining the nature of the path leading to liberation has 2 major headings. First, the kind of life or kind of basis needed in order to halt cyclic existence. And then the second category is the kind of path needed in order to halt cyclic existence. When we look at that second category, the kind of path needed to halt cyclic existence, there's a section that gives a general explanation of the highest higher training in ethics. So that section where the explanation of the highest higher training in ethics begins, Jayan Sheba states that there are 8 categories there. We've completed all the first 7 categories. We're in category number 8. And category number 8 has 4 categories. First category is the general explanation of the abandonment, or of the abandonment of the afflictions. Second is the individual afflictions, or the individual afflictions and their explanation with their opponents. And the third is showing that the abandonment of the afflictions is really the preliminary teaching that the Buddha gave, or the root teaching that the Buddha gave. And then the third category is that one who has abandoned those afflictions is called a hero, or as a hero. So we've gone through the first category of the general explanation, and there were 6 categories in that first category. Now we're dealing with the second category, where we have the individual explanations. That also has 6. So that's where we're going to start. I'll let you know the page number in one moment. Lamrim Chenmo Kaba Gutso.
Susu Sheba del Troimba.
Lessa.
Susu Sheba Tro non Dambo, Demo Giebo, Damboje.
Lessa.
Neba Shedang Giebo, Nebaje.
Lessa.
Somban de Sha Nebo Sombaje.
Lessa.
Jeba Jine Chuji Nebo.
Jitin Chuje Lessa.
Jine Chuji Nebore. And Jeba Jine Chuji, Jeba. Jine Chuji.
Napa the issue.
Najeg Nebo Marba.
Lessa. Oh, Namgyal, Lessa.
Najeg Nebaje. what the road seen that out, the Rinpoche, not so near the
Okay.
Shogun the Neja, Dunju Dunji,
Lesso.
Ngulmazina soon true, Dun Jeba the cheat and Dua, Jean Ni dans set. Jean Ni dans one Mundojana.
278.
Gulma Chinson to Guji, good
9. Jason Becher. Demba Dang. Gonchu Dang.
Jigile, Ni Dang, Momba Dang, Goba says in Bundu.
Okay, this is.
What the man you never said, Mara? Deba to go to water.
Yamba. Okay.
Deba said what the Naba to Rongaba. Deba to go to the Lendilla, never near the Tazun Tajiman was, what the Naba said, Juba Dani Dang, Momba Dang, what the New York Nebo. What the roots in Roshana, Mara?
Okay, so we find the section where we begin with the individual afflictions on page 349, and it goes into 350. We're actually going to be dealing with page 350 in the English, but we find some of the parts of the outline in the individual afflictions before that. So there are 6 categories in category number 2, the individual afflictions. First category is ignorance, or benighted ignorance. The second category is hostility or aversion. The third category is attachment. The fourth category is the 8 worldly dharmas. And then the fifth category is pride. And then now we're in category number 6, which deals with the secondary afflictions. So this is category 6. Ngapa, Namgyal. Nyun, Nishu. Nyomo, Nishu.
Nyomula, say you would Nyun.
Okay, Nyun. Bingi Lapsar. Datayin.
What did it? Tatano could inchang a lot of
Lapsar.
Or that Nyong Yabungo and Mazugua. Jean Nita Mobatan, Gobatan, Leluta Bamebatan, Mosameji Trimebatan, Jingetan, Shijima Imba Shishayu, Ni Yomoba, Nane, Gishula Ju, Patu Juba, Junyawana Imbes, and then Yami Ribashila, Nyabutene, Che to Tujujunto, Tumala Gumba Shawus, what didn't matter, legal citizen to the Mariba.
Okay.
Citizen, Tanya, Chidon Sanyu to Nyanuni should at Luri Vedro, Sayunamutu, Nyanuni show.
Yine Lorig that Seni Yomare.
Seni so
Yine the
Seni the Kajin Shijas. Kajin Shijas, Sumun,
okay.
Sensan Java, or then
Kanchin Yeshe Jetson? Okay.
Kajin Shijas.
Gangasina the Jeffrey Hopkins Becha, the Seni Yure, then Chikshina the Rason, the Becha Geshe Jetson. Yure.
What that then?
Nishu.
Sanyu to the Nishu.
Lesser.
Sanyu to the Shah, Naji, Yomoji Marib, Yomoji Tawa, Yomoji Taton, to the Che, Sibiza or Tajitus.
Lesser.
Tanya should throw Quenzi Siba Chaba, Sana Tadu, Yo Java, Nancy Musameva, and the Shiji Maiba.
Jemeba, Mupa, Gupa, Matepa, Lelo, Bameba, Jingeba, Shishin, Maimba.
Nancy, your patience.
Nampa Yema.
What to it?
Lesso.
That then my new to 12 what to suit the soup continue the lady, but
Lesso.
That you should know that you know the need to need. Yeah, need dance. Tang as you could do knees as you wrote the Sanjun Regan Sanjun. One she not to do as she be, she lives in Sanjun. Tamu but the pitchy Lendilla move at Medua. Tang as you don't need the Joan Hashel San Tonum, Meshiba into what things at Moba. 안 그봐 그봐서는 다드네
That's Rinpoche, the Gongyal Mepachik, Nick Becha the Jil, the Dig Dagadu, the Tambo, the Nipa, Lelo, Gar, Mupa. Then Mupa Gare.
뭐바당 가서 돈이 되죠. 가서 산동 가서 시험도 메시바지도 메시바들 뭐바 쓰고 이제
Ne Mupa the New Nishu New. You're back. Mupa, okay. Okay, Dixon. Then Mupa dang Maripa Drapudue.
뭐바들 렌데라 뭐 말이바 되지.
Okay, Leje Mari, okay.
렌델 산동 가서 렌데 좀 하지 시험하러 메시바데 렌데 뭐 말바서 되지.
Okay.
ana goba sakata nga su gunda jaba ina ane dona de ma de ba jin chode gen sheli goba yirwa dana lelo de ane gi shawa shishu de sheba lelo ba me ba ane ma ge ju tsutin da ane ma ge ju la so ba de ngalo ane kanjo ma ju san ba me ba
Then the Rinpoche, the Gangen Sina, the Gongyal Mepachik, the Mupa, the Tseni Garre, the Supo, Shet Jigut Sapo, the Tseni, the Samdang Lo, Jigut Sapo, the Loshin Yomare. Mupa, the Tseni Garre, the Samdang Lo, Jigut Sapo Dang Drapodu.
그게 단대 연구 연도
Then Garishene the Leje the Maripa.
렌딜라 모 마리바스 렌딜라 모 마리바스 뜻은 안 가서 렌딜 산탄들 사실로 셰금도다
Shemadu.
셰금도
Then Mupa.
미시바도 모바스
Ah, okay. Selpo Yomari.
어디저로다
Okay. Ni Selpo Lapgo, Gonga Mepachik. Okay, Selpo, Jigut Sapo, Drale. Okay. Then
근데 그거 말고 그거
Gupa. Okay.
그거 듣는 아주 그걸 사는 이던 텔마데바지 센셜로 초대견들 그거 말고 그거 되는 레로 기샤와 셰슈스시빌레로 되는 밤에 봐 되는 먹이 주봉 주진다 먹이 주든가 수수주로 연구도 마도 마다바지 가능마주 마다바이나 밤에 봐 따나 봐요 봐 인지로
Okay, Dana Ba Yoba. Okay, mindfulness. Less so?
되는 뭐 참매지 뭐 참매 봐
Less so.
뭐 참매 봐들 배지 순수자 마소에 nen들이 지나 지금 말이냐베 뭐 차여 봐 nen들이 지나 주던 게 그것이나 안에 뭐 차여 봐 아니 nen들이 지나 디그르선 가지고 제샤베는 뭐 참매 봐 주던 게는 계산 당잖아 뭐 참매 봐
Okay.
안에 체매 봐서나
Magenda.
다진다 그지 너는 도자 러그선 산나 체여 봐
Less so.
그래서 너 뭐는 체매 봐
Less so.
이제로다
Okay. Then
근데 지행에 나가서
지행에.
퍼가져서 말이야. 어디 이제
Less so.
지행에 당 시지 많이 봐. 시바스 시지 많이 봐. 시지 많이 봐다 수수 셀 거와다 먹고 가르용 것도 따다 근데 시지로 말이야. 시지 많이 봐. 시지지 더마다는 시지 많이 봐.
Did Zundru Dan Drapodu, Zundru Mayemba?
어두선 라본 이제 다 실내 때 때문에
Drapodu. Okay.
Yeah.
Constant. Okay. Okay, so where do I begin? So we begin when we look at these secondary afflictions. We'll find that in the low rig, or the mind and awareness teachings, there's a list of all of the 6 root afflictions and the 20 secondary afflictions. There aren't definitions of them in there because I went home to find them, and they aren't in there. Rinpoche said they're actually in a different text than the Tseni, the Kangjur Nangla. 네.
가진 시제생.
가신 예시 jetson.
가진 시제생 생생중 되바 주의래.
Okay, Kanchan Yeshi Jetson, in the text, I think Rinpoche just meant over there with the Kangjer and Tanjer. Kanchan Yeshi Jetson
다시는 켜버려. 다시는 뭐.
was a scholar of Tashi Lumpo, and he wrote commentary on this and gave definitions for all of the root and secondary afflictions. And I believe that's where, just as a translator's note, meditation on emptiness pulls the definitions from, probably. I have to check into that, but if anyone has that text, there are definitions of all the afflictions. So when we look at the 6 root afflictions, those are desire, anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, and afflicted view. The 20 secondary afflictions are belligerence, resentment, concealment, spite, jealousy, miserliness, deceit, dissimulation, haughtiness, harmfulness, non-shame, non-embarrassment, lethargy, excitement, non-faith, laziness, non-conscientiousness, forgetfulness, non-introspection, and distraction. So those are the 6 root afflictions and the 20 secondary afflictions. So number 6, which number 5 is pride, and number 6 is this category, those secondary afflictions. And then Lama Tsongkhapa lists some of the secondary afflictions. He says first, the secondary afflictions, those called sleep, lethargy, excitement, laziness, carelessness, shamelessness, lack of embarrassment, forgetfulness, and lack of vigilance, are quick to occur and hinder your cultivation of the virtuous group of phenomena. You should understand their faults and get used to reducing their strength through an immediate application of their remedies. This is dealing with some of those 20 secondary afflictions. So it begins with sleep. So sleep, when we look at the ni yanja suralang, ni the chik jason, the ni donagare.
니 그들 때는 원시 나도 동다 원시 니 그들이 동부도 안 주고 오면도 어때 원시 그만 도르시비 실리진 세조들 니로르스.
Okay. So sleep is when the sense powers are almost turned off. So one doesn't, while they're sleeping, apprehend visual forms or listen to sounds actively. So those sense powers that are powering the consciousnesses that are normally apprehending them are kind of turned off, or are, I think off is really the best way to explain it. Let's see how it's defined, if they use a different word for it. But they're non-functional at that point. A powerless withdrawal inside of the engagement by sense consciousness in objects. So that's a better, fancier way to say it. It's a powerless withdrawal. It's a turning off of those sense powers. So that is what sleep is. So the next is lethargy. So lethargy, Rinpoche said, when we look at the categories of ignorance of the nature of reality and ignorance of karma and its effects, actually ignorance of karma and its effects would fall under this category of lethargy. And then what I asked Rinpoche about it is that when we look at lethargy's definition, it says like an unserviceability and a heaviness of the mind or body. And what Rinpoche said is the meaning of that is one isn't able to think about karma and its results. One isn't able to have that kind of analysis take place. So that's because of this kind of heaviness of the mind and body. But it's connected in some way to the ignorance of karma and its results. Because that's what originally Rinpoche said was the definition, and then I just asked him about the inserviceability and then showed me how those two are connected. The next is, which book? Excitement. Excitement is being distracted from the object of observation one is trying to perceive. So one is thinking of another object other than the object of observation intended. So this is what excitement is referring to. Laziness is procrastination or a desire to do something other than what one should be doing. So this is what laziness is referred to. Here it says non-delight in virtue due to attachment to lying down and so forth. So Rinpoche said to use this text, by the way. So I'm not just, as a note, including this part because I think it's important. He said to use this where it seemed fit. Then carelessness. So carelessness refers to being not mindful. So mindfulness is carelessness is opposite. When one is mindful, one is checking one's actions. One is looking at his or her mind. Am I engaging in the 10 non-virtuous activities? Am I engaging in ethics that abandon those 10 non-virtuous activities? When one is constantly looking at one's mind and body, this is mindfulness. When one isn't, then this is carelessness. So this is what is meant by carelessness. Not constantly looking at one's behavior, one's mind, one's motivation. Carelessness. Shamelessness and lack of embarrassment mean two different things in the following way. Shamelessness refers to how one feels about oneself. So if one has shame, then one acts in a way that is not mutually exclusive with the Dharma. If one is shameless, then one acts mutually exclusive with the Dharma and doesn't care. When one has shame, it matters to that person if he or she is acting mutually exclusive with the Dharma. But when one is shameless, it doesn't matter to him or her if they are acting mutually exclusive with what has been taught is supposed to be done. Lack of embarrassment refers to not caring what other people think about what you're doing. So if you're acting mutually exclusive with the Dharma, you don't care what other people think about it. So the shamelessness is not caring for your own consequences, your own reasons. It doesn't matter to you. And lack of embarrassment means it doesn't matter what others think about what you're doing. Forgetfulness, Rinpoche said, just means exactly what it says, forgetting what should be done. And lack of vigilance is, if you are vigilant, you are constantly applying antidotes, constantly looking at if you are engaging in ethical behavior, abandoning the 10 non-virtues. If you're not doing that, then you have a lack of vigilance. And I said to Rinpoche that the word, when we look at the perfections, the word perseverance or effort is very similar to vigilance. And he said it's similar in the Tibetan as well, with the word for effort and this word for vigilance, or perseverance and vigilance. But similar. Okay, that's it. Big-sung.
ane nöse moba je ni da tene de la demba tson de jiba tela jiba ngabo wa de jiba ngabo de gi no ngalo gwa ngame ba zun gres niemi te yores ni yomo ba de so wa de jil jeba ina no so ju gwa ngame ba zun gres te ni niemi des jiba ngabo de da gi no Trubi Chungun Laba Ribanzu She Dansa Hotabatu Shitting Yemidredwa Dal Hasan Kuale Kaji Ni Damola Gajubas and then Makaji Nila Gabuji Mobala Gabuyoba Ina Gajua and then Tell Neban de Yoris then Zubulu Pengen Tan Lutan Tiji chiba ke nasa tu leung res, ne pengen tang, long tang, pengen ke nasa, long ke nasa, tiji chibi nasa na.
Leso.
Tada di lu la, shechen Jones, ne ni da mobile gadi ken tiji di lu la,
Leso.
Ne pengen ke nasa yung re,
La le.
Ne ni ke nasa karsa. Pengen talong ke nasa yung re, chiba ke nasa na, di lu la shi chiba yung re, di yung so zang di kaan na ra tu chuba jo, ne kaan ka lo de ne, chu ne ma diba cha yung re, choba jo ro, Kanji ni tamu, kanji mo the ni la, ganjoa, kazi nyabi tu na mada chins, ne makanji, chu kanji, mobata, ni la gabu yokente, kazi nyabi, kala raman the Tibetan, then Zubal Nugres, nyabi tu na mada chins. Then to Madaba, then the Saba in Zubu Jigu Chabres, Zugu Jibu Chabacha, Dugamba Changres, Ne Lujan Jelas, Jigu Sabo. Sundu de Mais, and then Sundu de Mais on du, and then do Maduba than the Saguna, do Maduba, T. Sijan Sawa Magicians, and the Kijasha Titu, Sibu Mabachangres. Lessa. So where do we find these points made that Lama Tsongkhapa is presenting? It's presented in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend. It says, with respect to their faults, the friendly letter says, excitement and regret, malice, lethargy, and sleep, longing for the desirable and doubt, understand that these 5 obscurations are the robbers who steal riches. So these secondary afflictions get rid of our virtuous deeds that we've previously engaged in. So the word isn't purify, but it's the same thing that happens when you purify a negativity. And it changes into virtue. Here you're purifying the negativity, but it's like impurifying. Here you're impurifying your virtue, basically, in the same way that you purify a non-virtue. So it's a very similar word that's being used that in what's taking place when you engage in a virtue that helps you abandon your non-virtues. But when you engage in a non-virtue, it abandons your virtues. So that activity that's happening is the same thing. It's just a matter of what type of activity one is doing. It's either enhancing or it's taking away. So it says in the friendly letter, excitement and regret, malice, lethargy, and sleep, longing for the desirable and doubt. Understand that these 5 obscurations are the robbers who steal the riches of virtue. So our virtues are taken away by engaging in these secondary afflictions. And then the quote from the Exhortation to Wholehearted Resolve. It says, also, the Exhortation to Wholehearted Resolve discusses the faults at length. Phlegm, wind, and bile occur to a great extent in the bodies of those who take pleasure in sleep and lethargy. Their constituents are in disorder. For those who take pleasure in lethargy and sleep, their stomachs are unclean because of poor food, their bodies are heavy, and their complexions unhealthy. Even their words are unclear. And Rinpoche, the Garishane, the Khensur Trogo, the Tsama Yomare, Ganginsena Khensur Kala Yabi Yomare. Ine the chikshena the mupa dang ni gabudu yine kala shera yapo sagadu. Then they don't gare Rinpoche. The Khensur Trogo the Metsama Ganginsena Kala Ducha sagadu. Kanjoas ni dang mobile gabu zuge. Ni dang mobile gabu to ganjoa kanzi ni dang Never to the mother jeans. Pigeon Kaya down, more about the color to do that in the Yunguna. Calendar son.
Okay, lesser. Oh, the lesser. Okay, so these 3 diseases, which are considered the basis of all other illnesses, occur, it says, to a great extent in the body, so these become cooperating conditions, if you will, for wind, bile, and phlegm. In the bodies of those who take pleasure in sleep and lethargy, their constituents are in disorder. So their body, like the body and the system that makes up the body, is out of order when you have this lethargy and sleep. So this is the reason why it creates phlegm, bile, and wind. Because of the disorder that it creates within the system of, as a translator's note, of channels and so forth. There's a disruption in it, so therefore it causes a problem. And it says for those, the constituents word is referring to the channels, the body, all of the ways in which the body stays alive, basically. The flow of energies that keep the body alive. For those who take pleasure in lethargy and sleep, their stomachs are unclean because of poor food. I asked Rinpoche about that. I said, what about somebody who likes sleeping and is lethargic but eats well? You know, what does that mean? And he said that it's really the conversion that's taking place when you're lethargic and sleepy of the food. So your food turns into, when you're lethargic and sleeping, your food, he said maybe it means this, maybe your food changes into something that isn't good for you, that becomes impure. So that was when I asked, because of poor food, the food turns poor in some way because of the condition of this lethargy and sleep. Their bodies are heavy and their complexions unhealthy, so bodies have a large amount of weight, feel weighty. Not just the fact that they weigh X amount of pounds. It means there is a feeling of heaviness, a feeling of jigutsapo, feeling of heaviness. And it says complexions unhealthy. Rinpoche said almost like acne, like a bad complexion. He said du, which is kind of like spots, like a bad complexion, comes from this. It says even their words are unclear. So when they speak, it's not very clear what they're saying. Okay, Diksung.
Sheba yeden günle yonsu nyas ni de mo ba mo yede gentele ane yeden ga nyan gres sheba su ju sa de menwa ane shebi yeden günle yonsu nya kab nya she kab gawa ga nyan gres gawa nya she ne mo ba ro ju gawa nya sa du ne mo ba chan go ju ta me ba ro ju ros
The Mopa, the Kakare.
Mopa, that Mopa, Chiba,
Chipa, Ale.
Yeah.
Seek Chipa.
Mopa. Needle Mopas meet up with Tangazo, Saros on the Mabalo Marve. Jar.
Lesser. Ale.
What did the Moba do to Kumashiba?
Ale.
Injured.
Okay. And then it says, those who, from the same sutra, the exhortation to wholehearted resolve. The do yimba. The laksan the do.
Laksan goa.
Laksan goa do.
Tama laksan goa London jibare.
In a laksan goa doyin. Okay, so this is a sutra, the exhortation to wholehearted resolve. Those who take pleasure in lethargy and sleep are confused, and their aspirations towards religion fade. So your desire to engage in religious practice becomes less and less, and these children lose all their good qualities. Their virtues degenerate, and they fall into darkness. So this word darkness, what Rinpoche and I were just discussing, is the same word that's used for lethargy. So they fall into... but it is the same word that's used. So, and just as a translator's note, in general spoken Tibetan, it would be used as dark. But in the Tibetan, this word means lethargy. But it's because this lethargy involves a heaviness or a darkness of the mind that disallows one to understand things and perceive them correctly. So that's why darkness it's interchangeable in some ways. And then when we look at the definition, a heaviness and unserviceability of the body or mind. So it's this darkness of the, more literally, it's like, when I've heard Rinpoche describe it before, it's when you shut off the lights, you can't see everything that well in the room, as well as you should be able to see it. And that's what the lethargy does. You're not able to understand karma and its results and so forth in the same way. And that's dark. That's what this darkness is referring to. That's so.
저모 단도
Chenrezig Kalen the ni mambo kerna pentogomare.
니드 가르레스 세리버 테오로
Chenrezig
가서 있는 시바르로로 세종
ale.
뭐 세리버 데나 어디 니드 가르레스
Ale.
시바스 켈레가 요거네
So we'd have to ask scientists what sleep is. Is it this consciousness? What is it that's taking place? Yene the Chenrezig Kalen the ni mambo kerna supo pentodu the chikshena the natsa yongre. Yene the ni nyun pentogomare.
못 가르레스 세리버
What is the nature of sleep according to scientists, or the definition of sleep according to scientists? And I was just saying to Rinpoche that science does assert that too much sleep can cause problems, and that too little sleep also causes problems.
니던 줘봐서도 어디서 그걸로 세리버를 지나 가르샤고 그들 저모 단도
And so it'd be interesting if we could ask so many questions to scientists and say, what do you consider sleep? What do you consider excitement to be, an excitement of the mind? What's taking place?
세리버 개발했지 세리버는
scholars.
해고야 보면 도서
Could they answer what is sleep? They're great scholars, but would they clearly be able to say this is what sleep is?
그래서 세리버 메슬로 도마로 유여서로 유연나 뒤공 가르스 진노
So the scientists wouldn't say there isn't sleep. So if there is something, there has to be a nature of it. So what is it? What is happening? So this is what I'd be interested to know from a scientific perspective, what it is.
다양도 담반이자레스 담반이자레 녀몬단지 지지네 레루이데스 레루이데스 레루도 간라 유바 틀라 안에 간라 레루유바 틀라 죽음에바 인스 레루유바 틀는 죽음에바 차는레스
맞아.
기초용 말레스
맞아.
다 레루스가 또 그걸로 세리버 메서마로 유스거다 레루공 가르스
Alaso.
어떤 가수 중은 자자가 됐다 세리버 시에도 그것도 도와문도다
Alaso. So the next deals with laziness. So laziness is laziness an existent or is it non-existent? Laziness isn't existent. Because it's an existent, there must be a definition of it. It has a nature. So we could ask science, what would be the definition of laziness? What is happening? So here, in the mindfulness of the excellent teaching, it says, the one foundation of all the afflictions is laziness. Those who have it, those who have a single moment of laziness, will have no practice at all. So when one is lazy or has laziness, going towards virtue, going towards the Dharma, is very difficult.
다든마 총롱지장도 총 어디
Dua.
총어로 밤에 벌어 주시봐 주 시바상라 인스 밤에 봐도 여바이나 안에 시바수주 저게 내기 상바들라노레스 손에 밤에 벌어 주시봐 봐요봐 밤에 봐
Lesser.
바요 밤에도 체리버 킬랭으로다 바요 공 가린 밤에 공 가린스 그것도 뭐 지야도다.
So the next is carelessness. And once again, because carelessness is an existent, and its opposite, mindfulness, is an existent, there has to be a definition of it. It has to have a nature. So here's another question we could ask of science. What is the definition or nature of this? So there's so many questions to ask that should be answered, or can be, almost have to be answered because their existence. They have to have definitions. They have to have a nature because they exist. It says those involved in carelessness are childish people who ruin their minds. As master traders guard their wealth, so should the wise take care. So carelessness is the opposite of mindfulness, and it says childish people. Childish here is referring to ordinary beings. Those who are not aryas, those who are not superiors, or sometimes in scripture referred to as children. So here this word childish is referring to children who are ordinary beings. And so it says, are childish people who ruin their minds. So if one isn't mindful, you ruin your virtue and virtuous potential. So it says, as master traders guard their wealth, so should the wise take care. The wise should be mindful. Here, taking care is referring to engaging in mindfulness. Digsun.
다 총래 밤에 벌어 주셔봐 주셔봐 상라 이거 걸라는 그래서 이건 전부 총변은 송아 따르 계비 받는 데 마셔스 총변 그런 잘라 송으로 왔다 대나진 계바 속에 네 바이오제 우르스 네 바이오제 바이는 거야 평우르스 받는 데 마셔 세단스 지로레 장스 네 라와시야 모자번에네 기우출라 개와 셰발레 셰바유 네 주문하도 그게 전에네 자유친도 좋아 네 통통야라 셰단스 다들 뭐 로지종 온다 말봐 아니 가면 어디 산지 구주 장지 보고 주어레스 아니 그런 로지 뭐지 그게 그살래 아니 출라가 장지 출라가 되지로 너들 장지 그게 되게 다 그루슬 아니 가지 좋아 됐다 버렸어 아니 나 그게 좀 싫어래 줘서 고마고 가는 잘하던 알트리 was 러버스 그루슬
Get you again. Okay, 주보래.
그게 나 주변이스 그루스 고마고 가는 알 잘라트리 was
Lessa.
너들 그루스 연다 강하게 아니 다가나 지긴스 러버스 산지 구주 장세되게 와등아 고마고 간다고 말해서 고마고네 아니 처럼 잘라 표야 되는 게 전체 말해서 아니 너 동바지 돌로 주고는 섬자 간다고 예스 섬자 잘라라 좀 철벽이스 산지 구주도 로주된도와
So, going back to the collection of indicative verses, it says, as master traders guard their wealth, so should the wise take care. So those who are traders, as businessmen, they are very mindful of their wealth, very mindful of their things that they own. They're always watching and being careful of them. Likewise, so should the wise take care. Those who are scholars are mindful of their actions. And then we have a quote from the Garland of Birth Stories, from the Jataka Tales. O Prince of the Deities, rather than cast aside your shame and act at odds with the teaching in your mind, you would do better to take up an earthen vessel, put on poor clothing, and be seen arriving at the home of an enemy. So this is from the Jataka Tales, where there is a story of a practitioner, a student, who went to the teacher and said that he is very poor, and I have to look this story up. He was very poor and didn't have nice things to wear, and wanted to go and steal them. Wanted to go steal items from another student and steal the clothes from another student. And the Buddha, the Sanjay Sumpare, the Sanjay Sumpare Gumagu Yamaribe, Sanjay Sumpare, Su Sumpare, Gegen Sanjay. Before, but so is in one of Buddha's previous lives, he was born as in. So it's one of Buddha. It's actually a story of Buddha and one of his. So the Jataka tales are always Buddha's. As translators note, previous lives and tales of his lives and when he was a bodhisattva and the various things that went on. So this is when he was born and was poor. Then Sanjay kon gegen la chinsa.
Sanjay
Jansi. Jansi. Best chingu.
And the bogus of Mobile again, Jansi Chulaga Chenro.
Less so.
And Jansi again, the Najuba, the Chusukuma, Nala was
less so.
And the Guru Jinda, what the digger is. Yes, love this.
Get your gender.
No. Sanjay could you get the transit book? Nakuma Kondo Maris, Natulu Chupukone, Lankadoins, Hanan, Jalara and Chultegi.
Sanjay the Jewangami Jits. So, okay, so there's a little more clarity now with the story. Everyone knows how good I am at these. So, in Buddha's previous life, he was born poor, and he was with a group of students who said that then the Gege and Jenda, the get your agenda nge ge gan gumagugure gumagu chala.
Again, Kumasago Marda. Again, go to Loro.
Let's okay.
Again, go to the Nat, again, Jubians.
Okay, so we'll do. Okay, so we'll do. All right, so I'm so sorry. So their teacher said to the students, I got it confused. I think I did it better last time. So the teacher said to the students, go out and steal for me. I don't have nice things. I don't have anything. Okay, now it makes complete sense. So in one of Buddha's previous births, he was poor, and the teacher was teaching to a group of students. And the teacher also was poor and told the students to go out and steal for him, to get him nice robes, to get him nice things, food, and so forth. Buddha said, so some of the students said, fine, we'll go out and do it. Buddha said, who was a student at this time with the other students, said to them, don't do this. And quote said, it's better to take up an earthen vessel, wear poor clothing, and go out and beg for things than to steal, because stealing is non-virtuous. So that's the story. Properly told, and it's found in the Jataka tales, and it's Buddha's previous birth as a bodhisattva, and he was correcting his fellow students who were given wrong information from their teacher. Okay, I think I've seen this in the 50 verses.
Yeah.
Rinpoche said we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. The Nge Tsampa, the Lama Ngap Jupi Delpa, okay.
Tandanama, shitting long jangdua. Shitting to Tembat Soch, Tembat the Abachigures. Goala Subatushin, Majiba Tembat the Abugures. Tembat Nyaba Ina, what the shitting le. On should to Tembat Dishiji, Draba Jibi Lanto, Nyawatens, Tembat Shirak Zawachibis, Sanjik Sungores. Then a Dine. Ngaba sonji des and chula so to the shebat majiba temba de sazo jene nyagores sonji te temba nyaba ina temba nyabi chugun jiban jurs temba nyaba ina ne chugun yung mares gi chugun nyande doa shibi temba nyaba ina and gi chunji ne rota chugun jiban jo she dans shunju le jang tude deba jendanes Today, never gentlemen, Jumbo Lulin, Tomayans, that should you go to Sundua, Tuba the Pashamota, today, Tuba the Demba, and Teba you can see, Teba gentlemen, Jumbo Lulin, Tomayans, Jumbo Lulin, Mombuya, the Zuyan, Jumbo Lulin, Tomayan. Shiji maybe, Shiji the maybe, and June Chabis. Susu Jula Goa Yongundu, the Diba Yongundu, Shiji maybe Jun Chabe, don't you knew the Jeba Jurus, and the Shiji Maba in Susan, and the Susu Jula Magijula Suba, what the Tonga the Goyungores, don't you know the Jeba Juros, and then Shiji Shirak Hitchures, Shiji maybe Jun Chabe, don't you need the Jeba Juro. Shezon Bataros. Tashuju what this will do, Tuba Denken, Teba Yuken, and the Tumba Kalimojaken, the Tulea, Shiji maybe Jun Yuares, Shiji maybe Tene, Kudutomamo, Nebamo Kuores, Shiji the Tauchures, Kiba Denima in a Shiji Dabaja Kitchure, Shiji Mena, and the Tuan the Nebatu Leongres, Jun Chabe. And don't you know that Japan Juro, Shezon Batarosa?
She shin dan zendru chapagare.
Shijin dan zendru na
Chapagare.
Shijin se kan temar beta Shijin. Asu jul ga yung de deba yung ta gen Shijin la umar Shijin. Shijin ro.
Okay.
Then the ji ka sa zendru. Zhen hao ge la zhuo was. Zendru se kan de ge xiao la. Zhi ji le jin sai zhong. Wo de zhen hao ge la zhuo was.
Joyful virtue. Okay. Then a true Tama Jeraple. Then the Droe Chindu Jorwa Toyan La. The Dondagare. The Gonga Mebichi. The Jeraple. the Jeraple, the Kamba, the Da Kamba, the Yargadu, the Dondagare.
또 말이 제가 보고 산지 구주 장식들 러버. 장식되게 그게 저를 잘라드는 거 봐이나 고마고 가는 거 말다스. 내 돌로 좁고 현실 동박하네. 자유 날 나가 두고네. 날 나가 두고레스. 안 라손 저를 제거레스. 고마건 제거 말을 넣어도 자유 친도 저 통영 라사 그 한간도 자유 친 한간도 난디레스 아우즈레스 그 고마건 저를 제거 말했어요.
Okay. I was just asking Rinpoche again about this and be seen arriving at the home of an enemy, just going back to that, just out of curiosity. Rinpoche was just saying that it's an analogy, that it'd be better to be doing that than to basically be caught, be seen arriving at the, better to be caught in the home of an enemy than to steal.
Got it.
So just, I think I've taken out as much of that one as I can, so we'll have to find it in the future. Okay, so now we have a quote from Nagarjuna's friendly letter. It says, Lord, mindfulness of that within the sphere of the body, speech, and mind is taught to be the one path by which the Sugatas traveled. Apply yourself to this and maintain it well. All virtues will disintegrate with deterioration of mindfulness. So if one is careless, that acts as an opponent to our virtues. So carelessness gets rid of all of our virtues. So someone who is mindful of one's body, speech, and mind is traveling the path of the Buddhas, because that is the path that the Buddhas traveled by being mindful. Carelessness leads to the degeneration of all one's virtues. And then it says in Shantideva's engaging in the bodhisattva deeds, even the faithful, the learned, and those who undertake joyous perseverance will be polluted by infractions through the fault of a lack of vigilance. So here again, I asked Rinpoche, what is the difference between joyous perseverance and vigilance? Because it's similar when we looked at those words before. And Rinpoche said, joyous perseverance is finding joy in doing virtuous deeds. That's how it's defined. Feeling good about, having joy when one engages in virtue. Vigilance is specifically looking to see whether one is engaging in virtue, not engaging in virtue. Am I engaging in ethics that abandon non-virtue, or am I engaging in those non-virtues? So that constant checking is the vigilance. The effort is feeling good about doing virtuous things. Which then perpetuates your desire to do them. So that's perseverance. Perseverance or effort, it's translated as that perfection in the six perfections. So that's what it's referring to. That's the difference between perseverance and vigilance. Deepa? Joyful. Oh, Diksan.
tajir me jo de nyomo da ni nyomo ma pon ma tu ba ne de je se ta te der nyomo ba da ni nyomo ba na ga ba ma nu chance ana pon ma tu ba ina ya ane nyomo je ka ma juro ne shu ma ze ba data wa shi ta da ne me du mo ro yu ne bi shu zo ne nyomo sunji balam be ne ane rangi kelam be chudin yonsu taba shawos wada jirma jil haja de marbel haja
Lessa.
ane tanyo de nyo de boma tuba ne na tusul data gures
Lessa.
yabu men samba ji sen nya gures nya ne ane nyomul data ne data wa tada me du murwa yimbe ne bi shu zo ne ane nyomu sunji balambe ne rangi kelambe chuti magi jubon chuti lo so taba shawo so what about tandrita.
And then now J. Rinpoche gives us some advice. Thus, even if you cannot arrest the afflictions or the secondary afflictions, it is indispensable to see them as enemies right now, without strengthening them or taking their side. Hence, side with the remedies and strive to overcome the afflictions. After you have accomplished this, completely purify whatever ethical discipline you have assumed. So engage in whatever vows you have taken on, whatever ethics you have committed to, follow them properly. Decent. And that's it, Rinpoche said. Then Gombawa the long Yomare. The
Sheba de la Sheba, Susu Sheba, and then Yamuduba Bowland, Yamuba, Moduchu. Tama Yamuba, Moduchu in Sumba.
Sumba Kaba good so good.
Didn't go
to okay. Gombawa. Okay.
Gomba is what there.
Okay.
And then Yamuba to Modu in
Lesso. So that ends the 6th part of number 2, the individual afflictions. And then number 3 is showing that the abandonment of the afflictions is the preliminary practice of a Buddhist. So this begins with Gombawa's quote. It says, as the glorious Gombawa, disciple of the great elder, said to Nisarpa,
Chu Chimbi Loma, Paden Gombawas, Gomba is in a John, Husubala, Husubala is some now Zanas, is some now Zanas, and Sonny Najin says, his son Nazana, Chiji Gishiba, Chiji Gede, Gishiba de Gumenagi, Tikalashi, Senet Trenas, Sanashi the Nasul Chawatan Train, and Mengagi Tit Karlija was Chawatan Lesuna, and what the Chawal land the Jawures, Mobra Sheba Trena, Moba Sheba. Edan Jilai Shetuala, Sheba Wongos, what in the Loju Marsad Menro. Carlo Guarazna, Le Jundilla, Jenge, Sune, Cheta Kilambi, Domba Tabason Ashila, Sheba Hino Sons, what the Kazagure, Dangang Tide, and Le Jundilla. Jenge Sune, Cheta Kilambi, Domba Tabason Ashila, and what the Dangang Tito, things Logures, Shesawa Yino Sons. What the Batu get then a Gumbisa? Then a Gumbi Ngodu Tena, Gumbi Ngodu Maribala Subi, Yomuchi Shanto, Sunala, Shasumba Tar. So this
is the preliminaries of Buddhism, this abandonment of afflictions. Gombawa, disciple of the great elder, the Atisha Getru. Long? Gombawa, the Atisha Getru? So this is Lord Atisha's student, Gombawa, who quoted this to Nisarpa, who said this to Nisarpa, Yeshe if tomorrow or the next day someone were to ask all your disciples, what are you practicing as the core of your personal instructions, they would answer that it was to attain super knowledges or a vision of their chosen deity. However, they should answer it is becoming more and more definite about the causes and effects of karma, and consequently keeping purely whatever vows I have assumed. Therefore, you should understand this to indicate that the phrase attainments, which result from meditation, refers to the achievement of a reduction in afflictions such as ignorance. So when we speak of attainments that are realizations from meditation, what really should be thought of is reduction of our afflictions, of our misdeeds, of our negativities, such as the first one described before, ignorance. Digson.
Ta nyomo pompa pao ngaba so de le won jiba nyomo pompa pao ngaba de shi ni ga chen de dan che shi ma ni ga di ba dan de ngen ba ji che bi yin dan Jentang Chubayang, and Jentang Chubayang, Trinki, Rinki, Dungan Tanchi Sudan, Dune, Zoba Shijins, Sudan Dune, Zoba Shiji, maybe Mala Subayang, the Ti Tse Shua Yin Sene, Mumbashena, and Yamujubala, Tumbi Tuso, and Kaji Zoban Shintu Yang Ride, Shunjule, Nyamu Dai, Masutobayan, Lula Jendandawa, and Sujene, and Tuanchen Drusher, Yanda Zumba, and Tuanchen Drusher, Yanda Zunjuba, Dala Dunge, Chisher, Numa in Sheson Sos, Theatre, Num with Dala Tane, Jiwala, Powushi Shais, Num with Dala Tane, Jiwala, Powushi Shai, Trajan la Tabane, and Trajan la Tabane, Masi Jan Rangi, Chiwala Gu, Rula Soba Dandate, Shunjule, Dungan Tanji Chesene, Shadan Lasu Danjumba, Tada Jiji Pawute, Hama Rula Soba Shezon Sos, Tisher, Teniles, Shunju Bendo, Tisher Tenile, Nyamu Shuji, Trenena, Nabatunto, Saint Zute, Wala Subi, Sengijin, Nyamutuji, Chitusha, Nyamutuji, Matusha, Sheson Batar, Lanji, Matibishu, Gunji, Tula, Matushin, Tadala, Jawashaos, Chibandin, Tumu, Lanji, Shasing those, that in the material Mudota, Yajilu Mudea. Tanangani Kabalundero, Sentashiniga, Sentetan, Shimaniga, Dibatan, Dungembaji, Chibi, Jenda Chubayans, Sindel Neba, Tawashamala Neba, and Dibatan, Dungembaji Chibi, and the Jenda Chuba, Jandijaba. Jenda Chubayans, Jenda Jandijab Chubayan, Tiringi Dungen Tanji. Ti ringi Dungan Tanji, Sudan Dune, Zoba Shejins, and Jandi Jasa Tatan Jim Luna du Zoba Gungures, Zoba Gungure, Sudan Dune, Zoba Shejin, Zobin de Jutan Bala, Pantan Lutan, Le Mishiba Taman Zobi, Pemamishita Imba, Zoba Gungures, Zoba Shejin, maybe Mala Subayan, the tea, Shua Yinshi Sene, Mubashinas, that the Gazur, Mamus, the man, Runnet, Madap Theatan, what the Sukan Kuzu, the Sudan Bowings, and what the Susa de Marbe.
Lesso.
Maybe Mala Subayan, the tea, Shua Yin Sene, Mubashinas, Wogan, Napa, that's what the Logro, the Susan inside Mobashena. Nyamu Jumba la Tumbi Tuso, Nyamu Jumba la Tumbi Tuso, Kachi Zobane, Shindorites, Nyamu Jumba la Jumbi Kaso, Kange Yungures, and Majiba Yungures, the Zulu Zoba Jibate, Shidage, Zoba la Jumba, the Shindorites, and Jimmy Zoba Gungures, Zoba Magun Junchures, Junjule, Teme Dai Masu Tobayan, Lula Gentundawa, Sishinas, Tuna Sonja the Tetan Mother Masu Tobayan, or Tal with the Jensa Sandan. Gentundawa Sishina, Tunchen Drusher Yada, Zanjuba, Dala Dunga Jizzer, Nuji, Shison Source, Dunji Dujinada, Zanjuba, Dala Dunga Jizzer, Nuji, Shison Source, Masu Dabayan, Dawa Sijina, Dunjin Dujir, Zobagonga Sumandua, Yanda Zamba, Dala Dunga. 就是年纪写中说是，原木被扎了他呢接完了，保险下意识，原木到他呢原木把他送那，那保的我这是个的是，原木被扎的光头把人呢保的我呢的是，人啊是几点扎有了，几点扎的他呢，我保险是老板人我这保嘛的是。 Dajen Tabane, Mase Jan Rangi, Chawala Gu, Rula Sobadandas, Su Dade Maseba in a cushion resiste, Shendegres, Susi Dasubade, Rosubandabres, Co Masina Shendegres, Dalajen Taban Mase Jan. Nagi Chawala, so could not Chawamataba Yungres, Kushenegres, Chawala Gu, Rula Sobadandade. Shenjule, Dunga Taji Chesene, Shedan Lazu Dajonba, Teda, Geshe Pautes, Dunga Chedusine, Shedan Jumba, Zoba Gumba Lazobato, Paures, Paude, Lama Rula Sobandas. Sindagi wote dasebate rosobate tabres odoba digi dabara
Good so. Okay. Okay, so now we get into the one who has conquered the afflictions is a true hero. Okay. When people fight with others, something that yields only sins and suffering, both in this and other lives, they endure all manner of suffering for however long it takes, even at the cost of their lives. Then they show off the scars of their wounds, etc., and boast, I received this one that time. This being the case, it is even more appropriate for us to endure the hardships undergone while persevering joyously in destroying the afflictions, engaging in the bodhisattva deeds. Since even a scar inflicted by an enemy for no reason is worn as if it were a decoration for the body, why should suffering bother me when I truly strive to accomplish a great purpose? Thus, the one who struggles against the enemy of the afflictions and defeats them should be called a true hero, whereas the one who fights against ordinary enemies kills only a corpse, since these enemies will die naturally anyway if they are not slain. Engaging in the bodhisattva deeds says, they are conquering heroes who scorn all sufferings and defeat enemies like hostility. The rest are killers of corpses. Consequently, as the same text says, the Bodhicharyavatara, when I dwell amidst the horde of afflictions, I must withstand them in 1,000 ways, just as foxes and their like cannot harm the lion, so the host of afflictions will not hurt me. Thus, do not allow the factors incompatible with the path to inflict harm on you and conquer them all. This concludes the explanation of the stages of the path shared with persons of medium capacity. So we'll go back to the beginning. Rinpoche read it all twice. Therefore, you should understand this to indicate that the verse attainment, which result from meditation, refers to the achievement of a reduction in afflictions such as ignorance. So that was from category number 3. Now we get into, this is all until the end, is the one who conquers afflictions is a true hero. When people fight with others, so when people are fighting, when wars happen, something that yields only sins and suffering both in this and other lives. So fighting is the result of, is suffering karmically. They endure all manner of suffering for however long it takes, even at the cost of their lives. This word endure, that's used over and over again, means patience. So they have patience with all of this hardship that they have to undergo in a war, And they even show off the scars that they get as if they were some sort of trophies, as if they were something to be proud of, to show the world what heroes they are. They show off their scars and their wounds, etc., and boast. I received this one at that time. This being the case, it is even more appropriate for us to endure hardships undergone while persevering joyously and destroying the afflictions. So a true hero is one who goes up against the afflictions. And then it says, engaging in bodhisattva deeds. Since even a scar inflicted by an enemy for no reason is worn as if it were a decoration for the body, why should suffering bother me when I strive to only accomplish a great purpose? So when we show off our scars to the world as if they were jewelry, and we wear them with pride, and they don't bother us, we actually like it. So it says, why should suffering bother me when I truly strive to accomplish a great purpose? So if something that is not a great purpose, I'm willing to be scarred up and then actually enjoy these scars and show them off. Why should suffering bother me if it's for the point that actually means something, that actually will mean something in the future lives, other than suffering? Thus, the one who struggles against the enemy of the afflictions and defeats them should be called a true hero. So someone in an army, someone who's done a war, isn't a true hero. And it says, why aren't they true heroes? It says, whereas the one who fights against ordinary enemies kills only a corpse, since these enemies will die naturally anyway, even if they're not slain. So this is explanation of death and impermanence, and understanding that all beings are going to die no matter what. So this hero is just killing someone who's going to die normally, naturally, whereas the afflictions don't just go away naturally. They have to be fought against and then and defeated. So that's what a true hero is, someone who defeats those afflictions, not someone who's slain a corpse. They are, because if it were the same, then it would mean that the afflictions would just go away whether you killed them or not. Whereas an enemy does. They die naturally. They are conquering heroes who scorn all sufferings and defeat enemies like hostility. The rest are killers of corpses. Consequently, as the same text says, when I dwell amidst the horde of afflictions, I must withstand them in 1,000 ways. Just as foxes and their like cannot harm the lion, so the host of afflictions will not harm me. So if I withstand them, here this withstand again is being used in place of patience. If I have patience and to endure these hardships, it's actually, as a translator's note, one of the divisions of patience is a willingness to endure the hardships needed. So if you have this patience, then you can't be harmed. And it says, thus do not allow the factors incompatible with the flat path inflict harm on you and conquer them all. Anything that is considered negative, that is not compatible with the pathway to Buddhahood, should be gotten rid of. And it says this is the end of the explanation of the medium scope. This includes the explanation of the stage of the path shared with persons of medium capacity. Digsun.
第一是等你两学究人都学究，第一是等你来，原木书记穿来拿是，那把东的三组的，完了苏北生个人是，原木的就借用的，原木个门都把结果的是，一个占卜，完了苏北生个人是，我当我都说给，那生个的这种呢。and sing ko se mane ba ko sada jegro ta burn marbe wala subi sangi jin wala subi sangi mane ba she ba na jin and nyomo be ran la mane ba che gures nyomo tu je mutsu sha she son ba tar ne la je mutun shu kunje chula mutsu shin la je mutun shu and nyomo ba to to ga social team manage tadale jewa shawos nyomo ba team manage and nyomo ba jewa shegures jebundi da to la je ba shese do
So going back to Shanti Deva's quote where it says, consequently, as the same text says, when I dwell amidst the horde of afflictions, I must withstand them in 1,000 ways. Just as foxes and their like cannot harm the lion, so the host of afflictions will not hurt me. When afflictions arise, if we're able to withstand them, if we're able to have patience, then they can't harm us when they arise. They don't have any power to harm us. Just like it says when foxes and their like can't harm the lion, so the host of afflictions can't harm you. So if you have this protection of patience, you become like the lion that can't be harmed when they arise. So when a fox arises, a lion isn't worried about it. Thus, do not allow the factors incompatible with the path to inflict harm on you and conquer them. So do not be harmed by those things that are negativities, by those afflictions when they arise. Conquer them, have patience, and be able to endure them so that one is able to move forward on the path. And this concludes the explanation of the stage of the path shared with beings of medium capacity.
What the Jibin Kadu, the Samba Jong, somebody Jibis, Tilla Ludusawa, Taba Driven Larger Rangi Telepo was what the San Marva. That was Gaya Chatagundo, Momentana Matusu, Nanga Sabuji, there's Sabudos.
Less so. So now we've concluded this section on the stage of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity. This section has an enormous amount of information in it. We have the mental training, the measure of the determination to be free, dispelling misconceptions, ascertaining the nature of the path to enlightenment. So it doesn't mean that we're done. One should go back and look at this over and over again because there's very difficult information contained within it, and one's understanding of it will only increase by repeated analysis. So if you don't understand very well the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity and the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, then the teachings for beings of great capacity won't be able to occur, be very difficult for their arisal to happen. So when we look at Atisha's quote from the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, understand there are persons of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their characteristics, or I shall define these three very clearly. So we've now concluded the first two, the small and medium capacities of the three. Okay, so well, let's look just a little bit at the Chikshena Khensur Kanga Becha Yomare. Rinpoche said, let's look a little at the second, but then I said, maybe everyone doesn't have one, and there are some there, and then Rinpoche said, let's just start the great scope next week then. So we'll start the great scope in the future. I'm sorry?
Second volume? Second volume.
Second volume, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Thank you everybody for coming and continue to attend this. If everyone doesn't come, we don't have class, so one of the most important events, again, I've said this before, but just everybody really remember, this is the longest commentary that's ever been given in history on the Lamrim Chenmo, and we've all been part of that. We're not done, but since Lama Tsongkhapa was alive, no one's explained his text in a more thorough way. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you're a source of all happiness. All powerful, stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the five great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji and Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denron Langasu Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Chirona. Tuche na Sheda Saw